Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Thank you for listening to the Victory Podcast. This is episode 14. I'm your host, Monique Watson, and we are checking in with Tramaine Lewis, who is a friend of the pod and been on the podcast before, and checking on her and Charlee and seeing how they're doing in this world of COVID-19 and some of the challenges that they've run into this year. When we last checked in with Tramaine, they were preparing for a surgery, and just tune in and see how that went and latest updates from Tramaine and Charlie's Cure Foundation for listening. So, thank you for listening and welcome to the Victory Podcast. I'm your host, Monique Watson, and I have the fantastic pleasure to have my guest this week is our friend of the pod, I can say, because we've had you on before, who is head of Charlie's Cure Foundation, and she's just coming back for a little bit of an update, and we're checking in on her. Got to check on your friends in this COVID environment, right? Checking in on all your people. So we're just figured we'd touch base and see how she's doing. We'll talk a bit about, just as an outline for folks, we'll talk, check in with Tramaine, see how she's doing, see how Charlie's been doing when she was last on. It was just before Charlie was going to have her surgery, and then also kind of, as everyone listening to this knows, middle of March was when a lot of everything across the country shut down, COVID-19. So how Tramaine and her family have been managing that, and just a lot of good information for some self-care tips as caretakers, especially for special needs parents like yourself. So how are you, ma'am? That's a loaded question, I know.
Man,
That's a loaded question, I know.
man, it's like I feel like an onion. It's so many layers that you have to peel away at. I'm good. I'm just taking it a day at a time. I'm taking it an hour at a time, honestly, because it's always something. It's always something. But overall, I think I'm still sane and
Hey,
I'm healthy
yeah.
and I'm happy
Mm-hmm.
and I am confident and I am optimistic. Optimistic. So all is well.
Hallelujah.
Can't complain.
Hallelujah.
Happy to
Amen.
be here with victory. Victory. Happy to be
Mm-hmm.
here with you guys and just happy to share my journey. So thank you for this platform. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, for sure. We love you and your crew. So yeah, so like as I mentioned, kind of giving the outline earlier. So I think we posted your episode. I think Charlie's surgery was supposed to be like March, like 15th, somewhere around there.
Yeah. And so
Oh
it did
no.
knock my brain because of COVID. We were so pumped and ready. You know, we had the prayer vigil going. We had people come in and bless this procedure because this was like going to be the biggest procedure that she had ever. Now she's had a major surgery before. Spinal surgery was going to be the biggest, so it scared the bazookas out of me. So I just needed the world to be praying for my baby. So I used every resource and connection that I had to have a visual for her. And then I find out the next day. Because she was going to have surgery 2 days after. But the next day they were like, we got to move it because of COVID. And I had just asked the nurse, do you think they're going to change it? And she was like, oh no, they're going to still go through it. And doctors had a whole nother plan. Well, it really wasn't up to the doctors. You know, the state, they had to follow CDC guidelines. They had to follow certain precautions. So understandably so, it wasn't until May the 17th. So waiting that month, I think it just gave me a little bit more time to mentally prepare and definitely pray and revisit, are we doing the right thing for our baby? And the procedure, it went way longer than expected. They initially told us it was going to be 4 to 6 hours. She was on her face for 10 hours.
Oh my
So
goodness.
you can imagine when we got her back and we saw her, she did not look like Charlie.
Yeah.
being face down,
Yeah.
being face down for so long, all the fluids rushing in,
Mm.
just like this big potato, and it just made me melt seeing
Mm.
her that swollen because
Mm.
it just made it look like it was worse than what it was.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was.
Mhm.
Yeah, and my husband and I just kind of grabbed each other. We were like, oh my God. And it took so long because the doctor was going to use a certain set of screws, and they ordered the wrong screws for her.
Mm.
However, the screws that came in, he was still able he was still able to use them, but these particular screws took longer to get into her spine. I don't know how that mix up occurred, but he said it didn't matter which ones he used. It just was a matter of which ones would take the longest. And of course, the ones that was ordered took forever.
Took
The ones that was ordered took forever.
took longer. Yeah. Mhm.
So, yep,
Usa.
yes, a
So
big.
so it went well though. I mean, I know a lot of the longer time. How's her recovery been?
Her recovery,
Mm.
it really did. She was a week after surgery. She wasn't even on the strong meds.
Mm.
She was
That's good.
seemed like her back was fine. She wasn't sensitive to touch. We had taken the bandages off. 2 weeks after surgery, she was just looking so good, and I was just so thankful because this is what I prayed for. I prayed for a successful surgery and a pain-free recovery, and she didn't seem to be in a great deal of pain. There were some squirmish moments, but she didn't seem to be miserable.
Mm.
Um,
That's good.
but that was
Mm.
um,
That's good.
but that was in May. So what sent us on a roller coaster ride
Mhm.
was her left hip, her left leg began to do something very weird. Like it would just rise up in the air and stay in midair.
Mm.
And I noticed that. I was like, something's not right.
Right.
So of course we went to I brought her to the doctor, and they were like, "Oh," and then not only that, she was in enormous pain from it. You could tell, enormous pain from it. You could tell. She just
Mm.
developed like after the 2 weeks, she was doing good. Then she started to be in severe pain, and I'm like, this can't be from the spinal surgery because
Right.
the recovery was going well. So severe pain from her leg, and I had no idea what it every week. Nothing. They couldn't see anything. They just blamed it on her recovering from the
From the
spine.
surgery.
And I told her, I was like, listen, it's something else. So then they decided to do straight. And that's when they saw her hip was out of the socket. Her left hip.
Oh.
So I started
How
noticing
how
some
do
red.
they think that happened? Did they
I
say or
my hypothesis was that when you straighten something, it forces everything else to get in alignment.
realign? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was thinking maybe when they straightened her back, it pushed her hips out of whack. That was just my theory. They said no, maybe to save face. Who knows? uh, but that was my theory because there were no hip issues prior to the procedure. Right hip seems to be bothering hell, but when they did a 3D X-ray, they didn't see it out of the socket. However, they did see some protrusion. So I told them, of course we had to do immediate surgery on that left hip because
Mm.
when I tell you,
Huh.
you gotta be kidding me. We just went through the toughest procedure and she was fine, and now
Exhausted.
this
Oh, yeah.
we had to go to surgery. Um, but she suffered like the spinal surgery was in May, recovered for 2 weeks. Now we're into June for 2 weeks. Now we're into June. I noticed the right hip, the left hip, and the right hip as well. Um, so June and July, they were trying to figure out what was wrong. So
Mhm.
finally in July, they figured out from the 3D X-ray that it was from her left hip being out of the socket,
Mhm.
her left hip being out of the socket.
Mhm.
And so they scheduled, the earliest they could get her in was August the 17th to do her hip surgery on the
Wow.
left hip. And I told him, I was like, Doc, why are you cutting on my baby? If you could fix that right hip, knock it out the park. So she
Yeah.
could
Just
recover from
so
both.
she can,
She
yeah, be
could
done. Just
recover from
so
both.
she can,
If
yeah, be
I can
done.
do so, I definitely will. He didn't. He did not touch the right hip. He sent her home to recover from the left leg, only to have to go back and have another surgery for the right hip. So if you can imagine how furious I was, like I
Hmm.
wanted to grab them by their throat. And
Don't do that. You don't need to go to jail on top of everything.
yeah, like they were very apologetic. And I'm like, I had my petty moments because he was like, I'm really sorry. Like I should have really done it from both of her hips, and my baby would be free. And so we had to have another surgery in September on the right hip, and so that's what she's recovering from now. And she seems to be a whole lot better.
That's good.
She's still in pain from the
Mm.
hip seizure. She's just sensitive to touch. Moving her is it's a hurricane. Like she lets out this cry that just goes through your soul.
Mm.
But once she gets situated, sitting up straight or what have you, in her position that I want her to be in, she'll stop crying like maybe a minute or two after she's situated because I think she realizes, oh, I'm okay. You know,
Yeah, it's just still that shock kind of.
yeah, she
Yeah.
is not as um, you know, you know, angry. I don't know if that's the right word. She's not as upset as she was at the beginning of the process. I do feel like she's progressing though, even though she's still crying. But I'm not. She's not on her strong meds as often. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have to give her those strong. Like I have to give her those strong. Like she's on oxycodone. She was on hydrocone. I mean, some real heavy meds that I did not want her to, of course, get hooked on. Because I mean, she's been on this medication literally since March from the spinal surgery. I'm sorry, May.
May. Yep. May. Yep.
May
Yeah.
because
Still.
that
Yeah.
since May, and that's just a long time for somebody to be on those heavy drugs. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to wean her off it, and today I may have given her the strong pain meds one time, as opposed to every 4 to 6 hours. So
Mm.
we're
Okay.
definitely concerned is her laying down. Like I'm trying to move her around more because I want her to get used to her pelvis and strengthen her, her core and utilize, her muscles more because I don't want those muscles and bones to get fragile
Yeah.
because
Atrophy and all that. Yeah.
you know, so
Yeah.
no, so but we are moving forward and I think I'm praying that nothing else pops up with her. I've just been watching, taking a real close look at everything, listening for because how I noticed the hip, I heard and I was like, what in the world was that? And
Mm-hmm.
when it popped, she was screaming. So
Yeah.
I'm something's not right.
Something's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to keep her still for a minute, but I'm listening, I'm watching, I'm looking for any swelling, just trying to make sure that she is okay. And not only that, let me rewind a little bit.
Mm.
So the screw from the spinal surgery. I'm going to them about the hip. Then I noticed the protrusion in her back. The screw was coming out from the spinal surgery. It didn't penetrate her skin,
But just
but you could
poking out.
see it
Yeah.
poking through her skin. And not poking through her skin. I don't mean to say that, but you could see the imprint of this screw.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it was almost like it was a matter of days. And so I'm telling the doctor I'm like, what are you gonna do about this? Well, his thoughts were to leave it there because he felt like if it's not bothering her. Well, how do you know that it's not? she's nonverbal.
Right.
And
I was gonna say.
and
Yeah.
screaming. So is it from this screw? Because I have to pick her up around her back, and I have to pick her up by her legs. So I'm
Just
like,
that kind of scoop bowl
yeah,
kind
I
of
have to
thing. Yeah.
pick her up. So is it the legs or is it the back?
Yeah. It's
So
hard to know.
when they
Yeah.
went in to fix her right hip, I said, you're gonna take that screw out my baby back at the same time. Y'all do this right
The second hip surgery. Yeah.
back so I can be done with this. And so he was like, well, if that makes you more comfortable, yes, it does.
Why would
I'm pushing it and it's pushing back on me.
I?
Oh my God. And then I feel like it's going to eventually push through her skin. Get this out of
Then.
my.
Yeah.
So that was a 30-minute to an hour procedure, maybe a little bit more than that. And then they went ahead and worked on her right hip. So we were able to kill two birds with one stone. So I guess the second procedure kind of had an important role because had she not had that second procedure, she would have just had to go in anyway for that back because I needed that screw out and another hip surgery. Yes. We just recovering over here. I
Yeah.
said it's like a robot. She had screws all in her spine, in her pelvis, screws in her hips.
Oh my.
In a year, they have to take the screws out. So
Okay.
that's
It's
not.
just to kind of help it heal and orient now.
Yeah. So she had to have her bone cut. She had an osteotomy on her left hip. So they had to cut her bone. So she has one leg that's longer than the other.
Mm-hmm.
But they had to cut it to reposition. The hip bone into the socket. So which is why I'm anxious to get her to moving around so that her hips can be strong. And so she won't just be this fragile baby, where something like this could probably occur again. I think the stronger she is, the better off she is. So we have a physical therapy evaluation at the end of this month. I look forward to it because it means that she'll be working with some um, experts, um, experts who can help get her back moving again.
Yeah.
Cause she'll just lay all day. She'll lay around if I let her,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't let her do that. And then there's this bike I want to get her that moves every muscle in her body.
That'll
So
be good.
when she's able, she's getting that bike. And all I have to do is push the bike and strap her legs and strap her hands down.
Get her.
And it makes, yes, it makes
Yeah.
move and we're good to go. So that's going to be our little workout. So yes.
That'll be good. Woo, that is a lot.
Yes, 2020. Man, somebody said this 2020 ought to be a curse word. Ain't this a 2020?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
been a year, but it's teaching me patience and perseverance and just plowing through it,
Yeah.
through it,
Yeah.
and not giving up, not losing faith. And it's also teaching me how to just get behind God because there is nothing I could do that would fix the situation. I,
Mm-hmm.
my thing is there's no amount of money that I could have that would get Charlee where she needs to be. Only thing I could do is get behind God and just follow him and let him lead the way. And doing so, it keeps me grounded and it keeps me not going crazy, and it helps me to stay sane and it helps me to know that it's not the end. It's not over. Things will get better. I just have to be grateful and thankful and just keep it moving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the other thing that folks could learn from listening to this, your situation, in addition to that, which I'm 1,000% in agreement, I think I've interacted with this, is being your advocate for you and in your case, your child's care, right? doctors know a lot, but it is called, and I have many doctors practice of medicine, right? They're not perfect. So
Correct.
advocating for your own health, because no one knows your body, or your, in your case, your Charlie's body as well as you all do, right? You're interacting with her every day. You know what her normal is. You know what's different. You know how she can, how she's feeling, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely important to advocate for your health.
Yes, there were moments where I felt like I just had to scream the urgency of what she needs because I just felt like what I'm saying is falling on deaf ears. Like the three appointments that I went on for the three different X-rays with the same type of X-ray. Man, I at one point I was just like, okay, if the second X-ray didn't show anything, like, what's y'all next option? Like, we gonna do this again? And I felt like I just had to put my foot down so
Mm-hmm.
that they could hear what I'm saying and just demand some attention on her. Not that they are not good doctors. I don't want to make it seem like, and they know her journey. Um, but they're practicing, and they haven't seen everything, and in this instance, I don't know if they've ever seen an osteotomy procedure after a spinal surgery like this, needing to adjust the hip after adjusting the spine. I don't know. I think it threw them all for a loop.
Right.
Trying to give them room for that, but at the same time, I just wanted to clock them.
Mm,
but
that's your baby. You got to do what you got. That's
so
your baby. You got to do what you got to do, Mama Bear.
yes, but we finally got to it, and being an advocate for your child, man, it's just if they can't speak for themselves, we got to do it for them because they can't, and it's almost like I feel like I'm the Charlie whisperer because she certain things she may be trying to tell me that she wants, and I will figure it out. I just figure out what it is. I don't always get it. I think 90% of the time I get it. She calms down after she's gotten what I've, given her, whether it be food or just me being in her face or a particular toy or a particular song, singing a particular song, doing a particular dance, whatever smile. I think we just go through process of elimination just to get through it. But I figure it out, and I think I'm learning her um, a great deal so that we can know how to help her. So it's my baby.
Yep.
It's my baby.
Yep. And how are the kids doing with all these different surgeries? And they've been, I'm sure they're trying to help you out and stuff, you and your husband and everything with this.
They're doing pretty good. Shout out to my parents. They have been, man, magicians. My mom, she wound up taking off a few days of work for one of the procedures to make sure that she was able to help them with their virtual schooling.
That's his own challenge, right? Normally it'd be like out the door, off at school, y'all good.
My 6 year old, man, she just wonky. 6 year old, man, she just wonky still for that
Mm.
virtual learning. She's all over the place. I have to like strap her in the chair. I got a text from my dad. He was like, I'm not ready to be in first grade again. Literally have to sit there with them.
Hmm.
Literally have to sit there with them
Hmm.
while they are doing e-learning because they get so distracted, and it really, my heart goes out to these teachers. I see what they deal with in class. I couldn't imagine 20 other of these.
And they're just,
Still,
I think, I want to say, I think like a 5 or 6 year old and like a 7 or 8 year old. And like that's the thing because they're trying to figure out their work schedules because we're sort of back. People kind of have different flux schedules, so they can come in later and what have you. So that makes it a little bit better for folks because of the varying school options. Some people are full virtual. Some schools may be trying to come back to do in person, or at least been cleared to do that. All kinds of different things. But yeah, that was her thing. It's like you become the IT guy. You become the IT guy. You become the principal. You're the teacher. You're the teacher's aide. You're all the things like for kids at the same time, and trying to do all your other kids too, right? Like helping.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
you need to clone yourself.
he thinks he's got it all down pat. Like he knows everything. I catch him when he's on break. He wants to pop a movie in. I'm like, no, this is
This
school
is still
hours.
school time.
Yeah, like no, you're at home, but you're still in school. So and your break is only what 40. Whew, the struggle is real. And then on top of that, I'm dealing with Charlie. So I'm trying to get them to be a little more independent and take care of themselves. They really don't have a choice. They don't have a choice.
Yeah, that's cool. And then, um, um, so what are some tips? I saw online with like I think focusing on some self-care stuff. I know that's part of the whole Charlie's Cure Foundation about caring for the caretakers like yourself and other special needs. So how is that going both in the foundation and for yourself?
Fresh air. Yeah, but fresh air is one of my main go-tos. Like right now, I'm just kids are in Charlie Secure. I'm on the porch, just
Mm-hmm.
getting me some good old QT and some fresh air. The weather is beautiful right now, and it really helps me to get my thoughts together. I journal a lot. I write down a lot of what I need to do. I try to stay ahead of the curve. I try to make sure that my days are intentional and I'm not just flowing or just carelessly going through the day. I try to write down everything that is important and that needs to be done so I can check it off the list. I try to have a to-done list. And and that really helps my mental state because if I am scrambled in what I need to do and I'm unsure about what's next, it's gonna mess with my mental and it's gonna mess with the way that I care. I'm gonna forget certain little things to do for Charlie and my other kids, the house. So I try my best to stay on top of my to-do list so that it can be a to-done list. But self-care is so essential. Just taking those moments to just breathe, and I'm not gonna lie, this has been the hardest to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I I've had a very, very hard time self-caring in the pandemic. I haven't been able to do all of the things that I've wanted to do. I may have hampered myself one time throughout this entire process. Um, but I did do it, so hats off to that. I mean, since March, I went and got my nails done and my feet and all of that. But I just couldn't get away. I couldn't get away. I couldn't find the time to go on my little self care excursions. Like all of that was just out. So I had to like find other creative ways to do it. Got me some roses, threw them in the tub. Created a little fragrance for myself.
There you go.
Yeah, I started doing things for me, just for me. Like I started juicing, and I know that's nothing new, but it was new to me. And when I did my first drink, I was just so amazed at how good it tastes with no additives. Like, oh my God, this is healthy and it's really just good. But it just made me feel so good. And a few other things like working in my garden, keeping my lawn up, just trying to take care of me. That all makes me better. For Charlie because she needs the best me.
Absolutely. My goodness. So with the foundation, anything, I know it's hard in the worlds and time and that we're doing. Any new things coming down the pike there that you want to share? Down the pike there that you want to share, plug, or anything around that?
Sure. I'm working on a date for it. I had a date back in September. I was doing uh, self care. In the pandemic, we were bringing self care to the front door of many things that they could do on their own in their own home to self care, whether it was polish, nail polish, whether it was things for their skin, for their face. But with all the surgeries, it just kept getting pushed further and further back. So before the year is out, probably I don't want to jump the gun, but hopefully by January, I'll say, um, we will be able to at least send off 20 to 50 boxes to caregivers who have just been trapped, like myself, unable to and having the box, just little starter things. So I really want to connect with other businesses who don't mind donating a cream or a polish or maybe a little makeup sample packet. Um, Even if it's a pair of socks, comfy socks, something, even if it's just a little lipstick, you can just walking around the house with your robe on. I don't know, just something to make you
Mm-hmm.
feel important, special, and just like you're wearing something that will make you feel like you're not just wearing the caregiver hat, but you're also wearing the me hat. That is so important. So important. So important. So important. So I definitely want to kick that off. I wanted to do it before the end of this year, but I really want to be realistic. With all that I have going on, I had to cancel a few things. People were trying to reach out to me to partner up and do some things, and I really couldn't do it. I could not, and I really couldn't do it. I could not commit because my child is not 100%. Not that she needs to be 100%, but she does need to be 100% pain free. I know she's not. She's probably not going to be 100% emotionally and just physically, but she does need to be pain free. I need to know that she's not in pain before I can commit putting together an event because it just takes so much. I can't just because when you planning that stuff, you got to be ready to drop everything at the drop of a dime. I can't do that with her right now. I can't do that with her right now. I can't. I can't. She needs 100% me. This recovery period for her running over by the end of the year. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna put a space on it because it's her body. I don't know. I have no
Yep.
idea. But
No,
I'm
for sure.
praying well very, very soon.
Yep, absolutely. And we're praying for that here at the Victory Podcast for sure. And I'll be sure to share in the show notes just your website so people can stay in the loop and connect with you on social media. So when that happens, whenever timing that is, they can stay updated, donate. I know I set up my auto pay to donate regularly, so I don't forget to help support Charlie's Cure Foundation with the initiatives like that and
And
all
thank
those kind of
you
good
so
stuff.
much. We really, really appreciate your contribution and your support for just loving us and donating. Thank you so much.
For sure, I'll be
Thank you so much.
For sure. I'll be sure to send all those links so people can do that, donate, and then keep up with you and all your social media. I know I keep up that way. Lets me know what's going on. So I need to touch base with her again. Make
Yeah,
sure, check in on there. Yep,
awesome,
yep,
awesome.
yep. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Tramaine, for being on. And I just want to thank you and give our love to Charlie and your whole family and stay safe. Keep doing what you're doing as much as this kind of uncertainty that exists of how kind of what the new normal, something that looks a little more like normal.
Yes.
But yeah, keep us posted and we'll stay connected with you.
And thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I enjoyed my time with you.
So thanks again to Tramaine for keeping us updated and being very candid about how she's feeling and all that's going on with her and Charlie and that whole family. Always bringing home the good lessons, caring for yourself as a caregiver, whether that's for a special needs child, for children in general. Also, always being an advocate for your health and the health of those around. Follow Charlie's journey and all the updates there. Please follow Charlie's Cure Foundation on Instagram at instagram.com/Charlie's CHARLEES Cure CURE. So that's Charlie's Cure on Instagram and CURE. So that's Charlie's Cure on Instagram and charliescurefoundation.com as their website. Also, if you're looking to donate to Charlie's Cure Foundation, you can find that as well on their website. That's Charlie's CHARLEES Cure CURE Foundation FOUNDATION.com. There you'll find all that they're doing, a link to donate, as well as Tramaine's blog and a lot of great information. Thank you for listening to the Victory Podcast. I encourage you to share this podcast with your friends, family, and even your enemies. You can find where to listen on the Victory Podcast website at thevictorypodcast.com. And on there, you can go to the page where to listen, and that links you straight to all of Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pandora, you name it, we're on there. And also, feel free to reach out to me if you aren't seeing us on your favorite podcast tool. And my email is Monique, MONIQUE, at thevictorypodcast.com. While you're on the victorypodcast.com, check out our merch page, and you can support the Victory Podcast that way and get you great Victory Podcast t-shirts and stickers and onesies for your kids, all the great things. So check it out. Thanks for listening, and I'll sign off as I do every episode. Willing to do the work to find it. Let's do the work and be victorious.